Ladies and gentlemen, it is Tuesday, and that means it is time to unveil another week of the ESPN Wisconsin High School Football Media Poll rankings on the ESPN Madison, ESPN Milwaukee, and Daily Dodge ESPN Beaver Dam YouTube channels. Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Nelson here in the Everlight Solar Studio at ESPN Madison. It is our pleasure for the first time this entire football season to bring you the ESPN Wisconsin High School Football Media Poll Rankings Reveal Show. Again, these graphics also go up from the ESPN Madison and ESPN Milwaukee social media platforms for you to be able to engage, interact with, and share as we now get into the meat of the 2024 high school football season. 3 weeks in the books. We are now in the mid stages, separating the contenders from the pretenders here early on. My name is Jesse Nelson. The panel for today's Rankings Reveal Show, joined just to my left here in the Everlight Solar Studio at ESPN Madison. He is the Dean of Madison Area High School Sports. He is Dennis Semrau. Dennis, good evening. How are you?
That would help.
Get your mic on there, Dennis. Yeah. Come on. It's a stream, but we still got to do that.
I let you do it. Don't really for me.
That's true. Well, I just did it again.
You're the hall monitor, right?
I am. I do police things around here. That's how it typically goes. Dennis, you've had a full week. Not only did you call Monona Grove and Wanakee on Thursday night, but you were also in attendance for a great game in the Madison area Friday night in week 3.
Yeah, Madison Memorial at Middleton, which were down to the final seconds. And that was the game of the week. I ended up covering that because the editor couldn't find anybody. Everybody was watching the Packers. And I go, well, I'd rather watch a high school game. Everybody knows that. So,
and it sounds like the result might have been more fun for you watching that one.
Well, Middleton is my school district, so I wasn't happy for the home crowd. But it was a great game, and Madison Memorial's for real.
I forgot Homer Semrau shows up here now and then when Middleton comes to play. But yes, Madison Memorial with back-to-back nice wins. We'll see if they crack the large school top 10 this week. Also joining us from our sister station, 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam, it's Wade Bates. Wade, thank you for being our featured media member. That is a member of our polling community joining us here on this Rankings Reveal show this week. How are you, sir?
I am fabulous, guys. It's an honor to be joined by such greatness here on the show.
Well, look at this. I haven't seen you in a long time. Good beard, my man.
I grow the beard until my wife tells me to shave it, so I'll see how long it gets.
Wade Bates joining us. Dennis Semrau. Our producer is Hunter Vaughn. He's the one who accumulates the data from the voters all around the state each and every week. We'll get his analysis on what he saw from the data coming up here in just a few minutes as well. Again, 2 divisions for these rankings every single week of the high school football season. The small schools with enrollment 549 and lower, and the large schools with enrollment 550 and more. That's how we divide them. Roughly, that is the teams that are 550 and lower in enrollment. Those will be the teams competing in divisions 4 through 7 in state championship games played on Thursday at Camp Randall Stadium this year. The large schools, divisions 3, 2, and 1, roughly, the teams who will be competing in the Friday state championships at Camp Randall Stadium. Let's get right into it. The small school rankings reveal here for week 4 of the high school football season. And starting things off, it is a tie for 9th. Tie, Mondovi and Lodi. So let's talk about this for a second, Dennis. Lodi falls 42-14 to the Columbus Cardinals, their first loss of the year for the reigning Division IV state champions. Mondovi, interesting enough, didn't actually play an official game. They won a forfeit against what would have been Osseo Fairchild. They did play a game against Winona, Minnesota, unofficially, and they did win it 38-22. So technically no game. Mondovi does go down 1 spot from 9th last week. Lodi falls all the way from being 3rd ranked last week down to number 9 here in this tie.
Lodi 0 yards rushing last week. That says something about the Columbus Cardinals, and that's a big rivalry, but you had the last 2 Division IV state champions. Columbus the year before and last year Lodi going head-to-head. And that one, I don't care what the records are, and I think Wade can attest to that. You get these 2 teams together. I've seen 6-3 games and 7-6 games in the past. It's usually a slugfest.
Yeah, Wade up at ESPN Beaver Dam, Daily Dodge TV. You guys have covered a lot of those Columbus Lodi games over the years. What does the story of this one tell you this time around?
I think the story to this one is I think it says more about Columbus than Lodi right there. Columbus is one of those teams coming in. They had a new head coach. A lot of the assistant coaches stuck around last year. Coach Sugrad went over to Ripon. But I'm going to be honest, Columbus is kind of our backyard. I didn't have them in the top 10 to start my initial rankings. And you see what they beat Aquinas. and they go to Lodi, and they took care of business there. I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised that they won, but in such dominating fashion that Columbus did. So if you're Lodi, I mean, I think they deserve to still be in the top 10 right now, and it's just more a tribute to what Columbus has done this year. I mean, you lost Brunel. Connor Roach kind of came back in, and he's carrying the mail for them right now, and they're just ground and pound again. With a pretty good quarterback as well in Peyton Powers.
Wins against two teams that won state championships a year ago on Thursday. We'll see where Columbus ends up in the rankings this week after being ranked 5th a week ago. All right, so those are your two teams tied for the 9th position in the small school media poll. Lodi and Mondovi. Checking in at number 8. The Xavier Hawks, another team that lost last week, down 4 spots from number 4. Xavier falls 48-44, Dennis, at Fox Valley Lutheran in what may have been one of the games of the year in Wisconsin high school football.
Yeah, they call it the Apple Bowl clash every year. And they set a record for most points, 92 combined points, 48-44. It came down, though, to a late touchdown run by David Schumacher. Then Fox Valley Lutheran forced a fumble. Can relate to that because one of the games I covered came down to a late fumble. And 1:13 to go in the game, and they took over and then ran out the clock. So the Foxes kind of stunned them, but again, it's like a Lodi Columbus. That game, you never know year to year what's going to happen.
4 lead changes in the fourth quarter of Xavier and Fox Valley Lutheran on Friday night. Incredible game. Xavier still in the top 10, but down 4 spots to number 8. Checking in at number 7, the Edgar Wildcats. All right, here's another team that's a regular contender for a state title. And Edgar with a big 41-14 win over Auburndale. Sorry, Mark Tauscher, his alma mater. Edgar goes up 3 spots from 10th ranked last week up to number 7 in this week's rankings. Checking in at number 6. The Regis Ramblers up 2 spots. They rise from number 8 last week after a convincing 36-8 win over Elk Mound. Regis now up to 6th ranked in this week's small school media poll.
Yeah, we had to wait till Saturday. That was one of those Saturday games.
Oh, yes.
We're going to see up on the schedule. But so far, they are averaging 43 points a game. They've only given up 37 in 3 games. So they've been pretty much running roughshod over their opponents, kind of creeping up as you said, from 8 now to 6 this week.
Regis gets Durand, Arkansas. That's Arkansas with a W
yes.
on Friday night this week.
It's not a typo.
So those are your 10 through 6 teams, even though there is a tie for 9th in this week's poll. Let's go over to the other side for the top 5 in our small school media poll this week. Checking in at number 5. There's Aquinas. The Aquinas Blue Golds up 2 spots from number 7 last week. Bouncing back well, Dennis, after that loss to Columbus. They got a nice 55-22 win over Arcadia, getting ready for Gale Electric Chempolo this week.
Yeah, how you like these stats? Quarterback Jacob Thornton, 6 of 6 passing, 231 yards, 4 touchdowns. You talk about efficiency. They had 48 points at halftime, so this one was decided pretty early. Checking
in at number 4 in this week's poll. The St. Mary Springs Ledgers just keep getting it done. 55-6. Head coach Bob Hyland's crew wins in very convincing fashion over Omro. They get ready for Laconia on Friday night. Wade, you've covered a lot of St. Mary Springs in your time in Dodge County up in Fond du Lac. What can you say about the Ledgers this year?
Well, yeah, I spent about 22 years over in Fond du Lac, so I've seen a lot of Bob Hyland squads. And number one is I will always pick St. Mary Springs to win a state championship almost every year because you can never count them out. It seems like a lot of years, their season starts in the state quarterfinals. They get there, but I'm looking at the numbers. They've thrown for 433 yards through 3 games this year. And I know he's evolved over the years. It used to be his favorite third and long play was the draw. But, they're balanced this year. You got a couple of guys that Stelmacher's rushed for 167, Anderson 189. They've thrown for 433. I mean, it's a pretty balanced attack for Bob Hyland's squad this year. And, again, the Ledgers just keep finding ways to get it done.
Yeah, they've only given up 28 points in 3 games, too. So they got that rock-solid defense. Yeah, I remember my junior year, I was at St. Lawrence Seminary. We had a scrimmage, St. Mary Springs. We scrimmaged the JV. That's how good the varsity was.
St. Mary Springs checking in at number 4 in this week's poll, up 2 spots from number 6 last week. All right, top 3. Let's get to number 3. Wrightstown. That's interesting. So Wrightstown shut out Sheboygan Falls 48-0. They were the number 2 ranked team last week, Dennis. and they fall one spot in this week's small school media poll. If you're Wrightstown, what else you got to do to maintain that spot at number 2? They did everything. They dominating 48-0 win, and they fall one spot this week.
Yeah, the Falcons had 7 possessions, 2 punts, 2 fumbles, and 3 loss of downs. You can't get any better than that on defense. And then offensively, 48 points. Jeez. Yeah. So that tells you something about a team that just made the jump, big jump last week.
If Wrightstown is falling because of that, then what the heck is happening in front of them? Let's check it. Number 2. There it is.
It's the Cardinals.
The Columbus Cardinals storming up the small school media poll. They were unranked after week 1. They get a win over Aquinas last week, who won the D5 title last year. And then this most recent week, they get a win over Lodi, who had been the reigning champion from Division 4. Back-to-back wins over defending state champions, and the Columbus Cardinals in 2 weeks go from unranked to number 2 in the state in the small school media poll. Wade Bates, your thoughts on the Columbus Cardinals? You have already shared some of what you were going to say about them, but my goodness, what a run it's been for the last 2 weeks for Columbus.
No, it has. You mentioned that big win over Aquinas. They got that late touchdown to beat Aquinas on their own turf, on Columbus's own turf, I should say. And then last week going on the road and doing it. I just think the voters across the state wanted to see if this team was for real, and that's definitely been the case right now. And I tell you, in my poll, I move them all. I actually never want to move teams down if they lose. You saw Wrightstown has outscored their opponents 161-14 this year. I actually moved Columbus over the top of Stratford here with those back-to-back wins, and I voted Columbus number 1 here this week. And Andy Ryan has been doing a great job. I mean, he's kept the symmetry there. I've talked to him a couple times here, in the last few weeks. They're just feeling like they just keep the train moving right here, and everybody's buying in. And you talk about a great sports town. That's Columbus, man. They're going to be on board. They're hanging from the rafters of the field house across the street, and everybody just packing them in there, and they're excited for Columbus football.
And to get those 2 wins over Aquinas and Lodi back-to-back weeks, Dennis, that's got to be huge for that program.
Most coaches would like to have 2 signature wins in a season. He got them in 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks he's coached the varsity, he's been the head coach there. That's our early candidate for Coach of the Year right now, I think.
I'd say, no doubt. So Columbus surges up to number 2. And again, Wrightstown, they won 48-0. And they go down 1 spot to number 3 from number 2 last week because Columbus made the jump. So that means the only team in the small school media poll this week that did not change positions from a week ago checks in at number 1, the Stratford Tigers, still undefeated on the year. The reigning Division 6 champions, 54-7 winners over Spencer Columbus Catholic. Everybody else in the small school media poll shifts around this week except for Stratford at the top. So now the question is, Dennis, what does Columbus have to do to step over Stratford to get all the way up to number 1 the rest of this season?
Stratford's got to lose because you can't. I mean, with what they've done, they beat Edgar first of all. That's the big rival, and then they've only given up 21 points in 3 games. 54 points on the board. So I understand the Columbus, and try not to be a little homer on that one since I know Columbus pretty well too. But I think Stratford, they're going to have to stumble or have a really close game, I think, before I'm going to move anybody out in front of them. I think Columbus is number 2 right now, and we'll see what happens. But they've had 2 of their toughest games in the first 3 weeks. We'll see what happens with the rest of the conference now.
Wade, your overall thoughts on the small school poll. No teams dropped out this week, but a lot of movement except for number 1 Stratford at the top.
Yeah, I think obviously quality teams top to bottom. You're going to see some of this start shaking out, though, because, in a couple of weeks you have Regis and Mondovi. I think you're going to square off in the Clover Belt. Got Columbus. They've got Lake Mills and Cedar Grove, Belgium left, 2 pretty good. And some of these other teams are going to be, maybe facing good teams. Aquinas has got West Salem coming up, so you talk about teams not moving out. We'll see how they pass their tests, but you look at the names on the list you're looking at right now. Those are blue bloods of high school football, and any one of those teams could walk away, from their season in Madison this year.
We've talked all season long about these small schools represented in this poll definitely being some of the traditional state contenders. Hunter Vaughn collects all the data from the voters from around the state. Dennis and Wade are voters. I am not, so I just get to sit back and enjoy these rankings as they're revealed each and every week. Hunter, what stood out to you accumulating the data for these small schools this week?
We had a couple of tight races when it comes to the total points. First, this Wrightstown falling in the poll. They still got 2 first-place votes. Columbus got 4 of them, which put them over the top. Columbus ended up with 160 points. Wrightstown, 158. We had a 2-point difference between 2 and 3. The voters clearly view those two as being after Stratford, who had 184, by the way. Clearly, those are the top 3 teams in the state for the voters. But we also saw a close race down at the bottom of this poll. Xavier coming in at number 8 had 38. That tie for number 9 and 10 between Lodi and Mondovi, 37 points. So those 3 teams, they were all neck and neck. We've been seeing that a lot with this small school poll, where it's very clearly we know who's at top, but that bottom group is just constantly a tight race, and that's where the voters just can't decide who they like at that 7, 8, 9, 10 spot.
Well, as we get into the midpoint of the schedule here, we'll see if that shakes out a little bit more in the coming weeks. The small school media poll led by Stratford checking in at number 1. Jesse Nelson, Dennis Semrau, Wade Bates, the ESPN Wisconsin Media Poll Rankings Reveal Show heading into week 4 of the high school football season. We shift now our attention to the large school poll, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Checking in at number 10 this week, the Cedarburg Bulldogs. And again, this is a team that won 35-21 against West Bend West. Maybe the voters expected a little more dominance from Cedarburg, but they do get a win. They are undefeated on the year, getting set to face Nicolet on Friday night, Dennis.
Yeah, that's their first 3-0 start in 14 years. So I think, it was a close game. They ended up pulling that one out, and Nicolet will see what they can do. They're not known for being a football power. But the Bulldogs, I think they belong in there.
Cedarburg down 1 spot from number 9 last week, so that makes you wonder what's happening in front of them. Let's check in. Who's number 9? Welcome to the poll for the first time this year, Vel Phillips Memorial. Many will know it as Madison Memorial High School. Vel Phillips Memorial. Talk about 2 convincing wins. And let's go to the Dean of Madison Area High School Sports for the insight on this one, because you were at the game on Friday night. You mentioned it already. Not only did Vel Phillips Memorial win at Waunakee in week 2, which shocked everybody. They really pounded Waunakee in that game in week 2. They answer the call then in week 3, going to Middleton, Dennis, and beating the Cardinals, who many expected to be one of the top contenders in the Big 8 Conference. Vel Phillips Memorial is for real.
Yeah, they are. Middleton scored, or what was it? Memorial scored first. It was Middleton first, then Memorial, 21 points in a row. And then Middleton had 28 in a row. They went 77 yards in 20 seconds at the end of the first half. Now, that might demoralize some teams, right? Not Madison Memorial. They came back strong in the second half, and they ended up with a 21-yard field goal with 3 seconds to go to win that game. But again, a first-year coach, Austin Battaglia, with 2 signature wins. And you know who they get this week? Verona.
And we're going to talk more about that game coming up here in just a little bit.
One of the problems now is they're playing these 3 tough ones. Now they're going to end up with some teams they're going to pretty much overmatch. That's going to be tough going into the playoffs. So coach is going to have a challenge to keep these guys playing at an even level. I got to mention one name, though, Marion Moore. Why do you even try to kick the ball? Middleton tried to avoid him. They ended up flipping the ball back on a lateral. He went 82 yards.
Oh, my
His
gosh.
second straight game with a kickoff return for a touchdown.
Back to the poll as Vel Phillips Memorial, Madison Memorial, checks in at number 8 for the first time ranked this season. In at number 8, the Mukwonago Indians, who lost in one of our featured games last week, 29-28 on the road against the Arrowhead Warhawks. Mukwonago drops down 5 spots from number 3 last week. And Wade, when we talk high school football in Wisconsin, we talk Classic 8. You're going to see a bunch of teams from that conference represented in the poll once again this week. Mukwonago facing Arrowhead last week. They get Muskego this week. It's a test every single week in the Classic 8.
Yeah, what a hard luck loss for Mike Ganavok's squad here. They gave up like a 20-yard touchdown pass, an unbelievable catch in the corner of the end zone, and then Arrowhead went for 2 and got it. I mean, I couldn't imagine week in and week out playing in the Classic 8, but, Mike Ganavok, I had a chance to, watch his teams when he was in Fond du Lac for all those years, and they're always going to come to play. They're always going to be gritty, and you mentioned you can't rest on your laurels there with that tough loss because you got to go right back at it here this week. So you can't worry about the past. You got to move on. But that's a hard one to swallow here. When you had that, you had victory. It seemed like in hand.
Back to the poll as McGuanago does check in at number 8 this week. In at number 7, the Marquette University High School Hilltoppers, 42-14 winners at Brookfield East. They have no movement, ranked 7th last week. They are 7th again here in Week 4. Marquette 2-1 on the season. Remember, they lost to Arrowhead back in Week 1. They were the number 1 team in the state, the reigning Division I state champion to begin this season. And now Marquette 2-1. They are on the road at Germantown coming up this Friday night. Checking in at number 6. Another Classic 8 squad. We just talked about the Arrowhead Warhawks, up 2 spots from number 8 to number 6 in this week's poll. Dennis, Arrowhead has had quite the journey in these first few weeks in our poll. They started pretty low. They moved up very high, lost to Homestead, still were ranked last week. Now they're up again to number 6. They are bouncing all around with this strong competition they're facing this season.
You don't head to the parking lot early on this team. You want to stay to the bitter end. Yeah, they ended up with 272 yards rushing, but they got a 2-point conversion with 3 seconds left. I love it. Let's go for the W. Forget the tie in overtime. We want to win the game. I love teams that will do that. I've seen it not happen this year, but for Arrowhead, that's a team that's going to be in the top 10, I think, all year long.
Arrowhead, McGuanago, and the Xavier Fox Valley Lutheran. Definitely, I think, the 2 most compelling games. Maybe you can throw Memorial Middleton in there as the 3 best games of the week last week in Week 3. All right, so those are 10 through 6 for the large school media poll. Let's check who cracks the top 5 this week. Checking in at number 5, the Verona Wildcats. There they are, another convincing win, 34-6 at Janesville Parker, up 1 spot from number 6 last week. Verona scored 28 points in the second quarter to go up 28-0 at halftime, and that sets up, Dennis, the showdown that you'll be able to watch this week on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel. Zimbrick Honda's presentation of Prep Mania for the first time this year. Not only do we get a ranked team on Prep Mania, we get 2 top 10 teams in Vel Phillips Memorial at Verona, number 9 and number 5 on Friday night.
The last 4 meetings with these 2 teams have been decided by a touchdown or less. Last year, Verona scored in the first quarter 7-0. That was the final. It's going to be that kind of a game, I got a feeling. And our Trey Poteet watch, he had an 18-yard TD catch, a 5-yard TD run, 3 tackles, and an interception. A pretty good day for him. And they didn't need him to – I think he only ran the ball a handful of times because, again, that 28-point second quarter, it was pretty much let's play the reserves and get ready for it next week.
Between Marion Moore of Memorial and Trey Poteet, the Tennessee commit at Verona, that is going to be a heck of a special teams matchup, if nothing else, with what those players can do on every side of the ball this
Moore's
week.
committed to North Dakota State, but I'm not convinced that's where he's going to end up the way he's going. I know he had a preferred walk-on from Wisconsin, and I asked both coaches, are these guys going to be on each other? And they were kind of hemming and hawing like, yeah, you're going to see that matchup. So I can't wait for that one.
That is going to be so fun on Friday night. Verona and Vel Phillips Memorial, number 9 and number 5. It's at Verona. Coverage starts at 6:30 on 100.5 ESPN. You can listen to the game on the radio and also watch the game on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel. Checking in at number 4 in the large school media poll, the Notre Dame Tritons. They just keep moving up step by step in this poll. Up to number 4 now. Notre Dame with a 35-14 win over Sheboygan North last week. Friday night, they get Green Bay East at home. Checking in at number 3. The Kimberly Papermakers up 1 spot from being 4th ranked last week. Remember, Kimberly, they always has this little asterisk next to them this season because they didn't play a game in week 1. So Kimberly is actually 2-0 so far when all of these other teams have played 3 games. But Kimberly did not have a game in week 1, and they win 49-0 over Oshkosh West in week 3. They get Fond du Lac on the road coming up here in week 4. Wade Bates, in covering Fond du Lac, you've been up near Kimberly. What do you make of the Papermakers and their chances to potentially make a lot of noise here this season in Division I?
Ironically, it's funny. It's funny. You get so much success, you can't get teams to play a non-conference style. Which Kimberly. But actually, I talked to an assistant coach in the FBA actually this weekend about Kimberly. He had said that he thinks their defense might be as good as Kimberly's had some great teams. He thinks this year's version of the Kimberly defense might be as good as they have ever had. They beat Bayport 35-14 in the shutout victory here. So, fully expect Kimberly to make a huge run this year. And it's amazing what they can do up there as well, year in and year out.
One of the perennial powers in the state.
Yeah, I like the fact, they can't get teams to play them. Oh, they schedule them, then they say, oh, sorry, we can't
Then they
play
back out,
for
right.
whatever reason. Every year it's something different. Yeah.
So Kimberly up to number 3, which means we have to check in on number 2 and number 1. I don't expect any change here from last week. Let's see. Checking in at number 2. Sure enough, the Franklin Sabres, a nice 27-14 win on the road at Racine Case. Nothing overpowering there, just a good solid win. So they are in at number 2 once again, which means for the 3rd straight week, my alma mater's number 1. There we go. The Muskego Warriors checking in at number 1. 21-7 winners over the Pewaukee Pirates. Again, it's kind of similar to Franklin. Not a dominating victory, just a good, solid win over a Pewaukee Pirates squad. And now Muskego gets into the heart of the schedule in the Classic 8, including a showdown this week. Mukwonago, 8th-ranked Mukwonago at number 1 Muskego. One of the best games in the state, a rivalry game between those two foes coming up this Friday night.
Yeah, that's Quantico's going to test that run defense. They only gave up 23 carries, 65 yards to the Pirates. By the way, a perennial state tournament team, Pewaukee. Welcome to the Classic 8, right? So here they go, 21-7. They gave them all they could handle, but Muskego is the top dog.
They remain the top dog until they are dethroned. Mukwonago's gotten them before, so we'll see how that matchup shakes up this weekend. Again, 8th-ranked Mukwonago, number 1 Muskego, one of the great matchups this week. 2 top 10 showdowns in the large division media poll this week. With not only 8th-ranked Mukwonago at number 1 Muskego, but also the one we'll have on ESPN Madison, number 9 Madison Memorial, and number 5 Verona. Wade Bates, what stands out to you from the large school media poll this week?
I look at Muskego right now. You talk about meat grinders of a schedule. You talk about the Class Gate. What I think they go Mukwonago at Arrowhead. Then you can mix in Germantown, and don't sleep on Oconomowoc on October 11th. I think that look at this schedule. I mean, if they end up holding this number 1 spot and run the table, I mean, this is going to be one of those runs where you're like they there's no denying that they're knocking off top dogs across the state.
The only team that dropped out of this week's large school poll, with Memorial hopping in at number 9 this week, Dennis, is Mount Horeb Barneveld. The Vikings eked out a win over Beaver Dam. Wait, didn't you have the call of that game on Friday night?
I did have a call in that game. It was one of those old-fashioned, slugfest, a 13-9 grinder with two teams just, defensively. I mean, it's one of those, you ever guys get in a press box and you can feel the hitting on defense? That's what we had last Friday night down at Mount Horeb. And, the Mount Horeb defense, Beaver Dam kind of dominated the first couple of possessions in that one, but Beaver Dam had a 1st and goal inside the 5, got pushed back, settled for a field goal. Then the Mount Horeb defense ended up holding on a 4th down inside the 10 on the 2nd possession. And then it was just popped a long touchdown run, and the teams just kind of exchanged punts. And it was a fun game to watch, low-scoring game. And those teams came in both averaging over 40 points a game, and it was 13-9.
So, Dennis, despite the win, Mount Horeb Barneveld 3-0 drops out of the top 10 this week. Do you think we'll see the Vikings back in the top 10 in the very near future?
Well, they got Watertown this week, and Sauk Prairie beat them 44-0 last week. So this might be a week where they get to kind of prepare for Stoughton coming down the road in a couple of weeks.
We'll have that game on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel as well. Hunter Vaughn, before we go, any thoughts from accumulating the data on the large school media poll this week that you want to share with all of us here tuning in?
Our voters can't decide what to do with the Verona Wildcats. They came in at number 5, but they received votes for 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. No one in the state knows what to think of this Verona team. We know that they're good enough to be a top 10 team, clearly based off of what the voters are saying, but nobody knows exactly how good. And we run into this problem all the time with the Big 8, where, yeah, they're great in the regular season, but because there's so many good teams over in that Milwaukee area, somebody's going to get pulled over this way when it comes playoff time. Unfortunately, Verona might sit at a 1 or a 2 seed, and then all of a sudden you're going to have to play Muskego to go to Camp Randall, and it's like, well, Okay, have fun with that. And I think that's what we might end up seeing again this year. These Madison teams, they keep getting these Milwaukee schools pulled into them come playoff time, and the voters see that, and I think that's why we have this big discrepancy in what to do with these Madison teams.
Dennis, as you get set for the call with Hunter for that huge game on Friday night between 9th-ranked Memorial and 5th-ranked Verona, do you think the Wildcats have what it takes to get to state this year?
I think they do. I like what Andrew Riley, the coach, has done. He's taken it another level from Dave Richardson, a Hall of Fame. And you got playmakers. That's the thing, is how many do they have? When you got a player like Botit that can impact in so many ways, that's another one who should never see a return. But teams keep trying to kick and say, oh, well, we can do it or we can outkick, and then they still make big plays. So that's going to be a big one because of the big play capability on both teams. And Ty Aparicio, he had the game-winning field goal for Memorial. He has developed the last 2 years as also a very outstanding receiver as well. So I really like the matchup. After that, and then what is it? We've got Middleton and Verona. Then that's it for the Big Eight the rest of the year.
It'll be decided by that point.
Yeah, we'll be playing basically the 3 of the 4 Madison teams just do not have it this year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we can't wait to see the 2 teams that do have it for sure this Friday night. 9th-ranked Val Phillips Memorial, the Madison Memorial Spartans, and the 5th-ranked Verona Wildcats on ESPN Madison. Dennis Semrau and Hunter Vaughn will have the call on Friday night. Wade Bates, what's going on Daily Dodge TV up at ESPN Beaver Dam this week?
Got a couple of football games on Friday night. Beaver Dam's home at H.H. Durley Field against Sauk Prairie, and that's kind of a big game that doesn't count in the conference standings, but it counts in the playoff implications. After dropping that game to Mount Horeb last week, that counts as they need to get to their 4 wins or whatever to qualify. But so this is a big one with Sauk Prairie coming to town, and I'll be on the call on that one. It's also on 1430 ESPN Beaver Dam, and then also big one in the Trailways. Cambria Friesland's the team. They got knocked off by Cambridge early in the year, but both Randolph and Cambria Friesland expect to contend in the Trailways, and we'll have that one as well on Daily Dodge TV here coming up. So a couple of options on Friday night.
For those of you who have not watched a broadcast on Daily Dodge TV over the last number of years, check them out. It is top quality production. Great job by the entire team up there at ESPN Beaver Dam, bringing us football coverage live and local every single Friday night. Whether there's rain, whether there's a Packers game going on, you guys are all on it up there. Wade, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. Wade Bates, ESPN Beaver Dam. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate you guys having me. Hopefully I can come back someday.
We'll see. Dennis and I will talk. We'll see.
You're a rock star. Of course, we want you back, buddy.
Dennis, can't wait to see you on the call Friday night with Hunter for Memorial and Verona. Going to be a fun week.
Yeah, I'm going to get there about 2.5 hours early, I think. I want to make sure. And the atmosphere is going to be great. And this is a team that you've got 2 young coaches that have their programs in the right direction. And the winner is could probably be the conference champ. We'll see. Middleton might still have a say in it, but I think this could determine the conference championship.
The Dean's getting there early, and I think he's bringing the grill for tailgating with Hunter Vaughn. You guys will have the call. Hunter, thanks so much producing the show each and every week, and have fun with the call of a top 10 matchup this week.
Thanks, Jesse. I'm super excited. I have a feeling it's going to be like a Big 12 type of battle. This might be a 45-42 victory for one of these teams.
And I'll be finding out how to watch McGuanago and Muskego, although I'm going to support you guys too. But rivalry game, top 10 matchup, my alma mater trying to stay number 1. I hope everybody accepts that I'm going to probably pay attention to that game.
Wait, this is a time where you want to be able to clone yourself, right? There's just too many games. You want to see them all.
It's going to be so much fun to see it all take place this week. Week 4, we get into the meat of the high school football season. Thanks for joining us today on the ESPN Wisconsin Media Poll Rankings Reveal Show. My name is Jesse Nelson. Enjoy high school football this week all around the state. This has been the ESPN Wisconsin Media Poll Rankings Reveal Show on ESPN Wisconsin.